So we got a solid brief, check. We've defined the client's project goals, check. Now it's time to do some research and create some prototypes for the presentation. Ever wanted to know what goes on behind a rebrand project or the transformation an organization takes when changing their brand identity and repositioning themselves to focus on a more targeted audience or business direction? Well, come join us as we take you through a real-life rebrand of an organization that needs assistance to build a professional brand identity system. We are Black Bear Creative, a family-run design studio based in Australia, and we specialize in creating brand identities for companies big and small. So over the years, we have developed a framework called the 4-step brand design process, which we'll be using to help out our friends at Spacelab Brazil. This mini-series will show you Spacelab's rebrand journey from the initial discovery meetings to concept logo design and all the way through to the final implementation. So if you're interested in brand identity design or want to learn more about our framework, then stay tuned and enjoy. In order for everyone involved in the project to be aligned with the same aesthetic goals, we need a way to test out different design elements with the client to get a feel for what they like and what they don't like. So this is where style boards come into play. Using the information from the creative brief, I'll go and start researching visual examples that I think will work well for the style boards. I'll start my research online and look through Pinterest, Dribbble, Behance, Google, anywhere I can see some inspiring design examples. I'll then extend the search out of the screen and go through some design books, magazines, even go to the physical places that can give me more context about the brand. In this case, reading about different missions and projects Spacelab is involved with. Researching about their missions, programs, and projects and how they can relate to the Spacelab brand philosophy. Once I gather all the visual references, I'll start to create free style boards. The reason why I like to create free is because it allows me to experiment with 3 different possible design directions. So each one is focused on its own specific style or its specific brand story. So board 1 focuses on a professional modern academic facility using a lot of clean sans serif typography, clean photography featuring state-of-the-art technology and learning facilities, and uses a high contrast color palette with more modern design elements. So board 2 is focused more on a traditional academic brand to position Spacelab as a more established brand. With a reduced color palette and slab serif typography, using like emblem style sort of logos and more generic student focused photography. So board 3 focuses on being a futuristic institution using more abstract logo examples, futuristic typography, more color and illustrative elements with very high contrast color palette. And I also like to add examples of the customer bios that we created in the discovery phase, because this sort of prompts the client to remember that we're also designing for them, not just for ourselves. So once this is completed, I'll organize a regroup for me to go through the boards with the client, taking them through the thought process and giving them context of each possible design direction. So we got back the style boards from Spacelab and they sent us through some useful comments and feedback about the 3 different directions we can go. So the feedback confirmed my initial assumptions about where we should go with the direction. Overall, they wanted to go with the first board as they felt like that was more in line of what they were envisioning at the end of the project. And that's sort of what I assumed they were going to go with. But it was good to just have some visual references for them to see and physically and say, yep, that's the one, that's sort of where we want to go. And so there's limits the chance of misinterpretation and, making sure we're on the same page. So they really like some of the logo examples on board 1, photography as well. So I think they want to explore a couple more color options as well. So board 2, they felt like it was focused more as an institution as opposed of an actual laboratory, which was the idea. So I wanted board 2, as you know, is more focused on academic, very traditional something that you would see from an actual university or a university marketing campaign. So they picked up on that, which was good. So that was a definite no. We're not going to go with that direction. They don't want to see that type of brand mark or those type of elements in there. And Free, as you know, was futuristic, like very futuristic academic sort of style. And there were some elements that they were interested in, but overall it still wasn't the direction they wanted to go. They didn't really like the badge icons or the badge logos examples that were on there. And I think one of the logo examples on Board Free, one of the comments was they look sort of like a skateboard brand, so we definitely don't want to go that direction as well. So overall, yeah, super useful. Now I'm more confident in terms of what direction I should go with the actual concepts. So once we get all the feedback from the style boards, we can now start prototyping. So the first part of the process is the mind map. I'll start with keywords from the creative brief and try to expand on them by creating different related keywords as I try to connect them together to create even more keywords. I'll build this mind map out so I can explore different ways to approach the sketches. And this is a great warm-up exercise I like to use to get those neurons firing up in the brain and to get into that creative mindset. So now with the aid of my trusty sketchbook, I'll start to sketch some rapid visual prototypes, which is a fancy way of saying concept sketches. The goal is not to make every concept perfect, it's to just quickly explore different options and play with multiple ideas. It doesn't matter if they're trash, I just want to expand on these ideas that will lead me to the next possible solution. It's very hard to get an interesting idea or a solid idea from your initial sketches. Normally, my first few sketches are very cliche, or it's mostly just similar stuff that other designers generally can come up with. I use these initial designs to spark another idea, which is then used to spark another. So once I have a couple of ideas that I think will translate well to digital, I'll scan the pages from my sketchbook and load them up in Adobe Illustrator. I'll begin transforming these sketches into digital vectors, choosing suitable fonts for the logo type, or if there's no suitable font, I'll just create my own. I'll then start chopping, pulling, removing, adding, and connecting different anchor points and shapes until a concept is formed. I'll create variations of the concepts and stick to the strongest ones. And I only work in black and white at this stage because I only want to focus on the form of the concept and create a good foundation. If the concept doesn't work in black and white at this stage, then it's more than likely going to have issues when you add color. We've come up with some concepts for Space Lab. Got 3 different options that I'm sort of liking at the moment. As you can see, we went through a lot of different examples, a lot of hits and misses, but I think we've come up with a solid 3. First one, sort of like a final frontier. You've got sort of just the edge of the earth sort of silhouette there, and I was playing with the initial font and trying to simplify it. At first, I actually tried to, create it very, very futuristic, but it just was illegible. So I scaled back a lot of the initial things, as you can see in this example here. It's a lot of things cut out off the P, out of the E and the B, but when you scale it back, it just made it harder to read. Tightening up the A's, changing the L's, giving a bit more roundness to the L, changing up the ends of the S, the C, the E from the original, trying to give it a more of an angled look. Because the original font was good, but too futuristic, if that makes sense. And yeah, it works pretty well. I think I need to figure out in terms of when I like a responsive version of maybe just the SL, maybe just the S. What's that going to look like? So we have sort of like a small lockup. So the second one is in between futuristic and I'd say tech startup. It's a very clean, bold typeface. And I just explored how I can use like a textured circle element like these ones and then trying to cut out from the B. I decided to use this type of texture that's sort of still cut into the B. That's still part of it. Yeah, I had to simplify it more by making the strokes a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker, so there's not as many lines and a little bit more gap between each line, just so when we scale it back, you can still see it. You can still see the line work there, and it's a little bit more flexible now. So I can even use this just by itself. We've got the third one is more of the traditional looking one, which is inspired by their old one, their old brand identity, their old logo. You know, good, strong, futuristic typeface, nice and rounded, very spacey looking, if that makes sense. If you see through the sketch, I wanted to create the edge of the planet and like it's not a ring as opposed to something like Saturn. It's actually, so it's something traveling around the orbit of the planet. But I was playing around with this, trying to make the spacing in between these sections here even and big enough. So if I make it smaller, it's still easy to recognize. So I've been working on a couple of concepts these last couple of days, and I think I've got some contenders that will work well for the presentation. I've tried testing them on different types of backgrounds and sizes, and they seem to work well, but really we won't know until we start adding them into the mockups. So the presentation is the most crucial part of the process. If I just send the client the PDF files or the presentation files, there's a 99% chance that the client will misinterpret the designs or miss the context behind the concepts. So it's my job to take them through the start of the journey and lead them to the finish line. So I'll start by outlining how the client can get the most out of the presentation, list their project goals that we previously defined in the discovery phase, go through their brand keywords that we use to define their brand. This just ensures that we give the client the full context of what we're doing, reminding everyone on what are the main goals that we're trying to achieve, and to make sure we make design decisions based on achieving these goals. So once we're all aligned, we can go through the concepts one by one, taking them through the basic black and white version of the logo, the reversed, the full color, and how it will look like on different color backgrounds. I'll then showcase how the concept will work as a responsive logo, which means how it will look like when scaled at different sizes. So the presentation will also include suggested fonts that will work with the overall brand identity system, and most importantly, how the logo will look when it's applied to different applications such as business cards, clothing, posters, bags, pens, screens, and this will change depending on the type of client. And this helps the client visualize how the brand identity will actually look like or how it will be implemented in the real world. Okay, so we just had our concept presentation meeting with Spacelab, went through the 3 concepts and it went well. Everyone seemed to like the initial concepts. We have to wait for actual confirmed feedback. They need to go back and show everyone who's involved in the project before they give me the final feedback. So maybe in another week, figure out what we need to do and refine the concept further. Out of the whole process, presenting the concepts is probably the most stressful or nerve-wracking. Luckily, these group of people are really awesome to work with, so it just makes presenting a little bit easier. But no matter who you present to, you always have some sort of nervousness, or you always have some nerves going into it. So, but as long as you prepare, should be okay. So I think my main worry at the moment is that there are a lot of different people involved, and I'm pretty sure that I've spoken to or I have contact with the majority of them, and I've created the presentation in a way where it's easy to create context around the concepts. So if you're doing the presentation, you sort of want to give context and then show the actual visuals. So hopefully that helps the guys that are, in this meeting today when they present to other people. We'll see how we go, and hopefully things run smoothly. So that's it for this episode. Keep an eye out for episode 3 on feedback and refinement. As we get feedback from the presentation, we need to adjust the brand identity, make changes to get the brand identity to where it needs to be. If you missed episode 1, then I highly recommend you go and watch it. Thank you for watching. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more useful creative content. Keep up to date with all things Black Bear Creative by following us on our socials. Just look up Black Bear Creative. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.